They told me not to go back for her. I want that said plainly before anything else, because everything that follows happened against a direct order, and I have never once regretted it. I was the only human on the relief column that made planetfall at Andras Reach, attached to a coalition unit that did not owe the VAE anything formal. No treaty, no alliance, nothing but the thin courtesy you extend to a dying neighbor. Their queen had spent 6 years refusing every peace the wider galaxy tried to broker for her, including a marriage that would have bought her people safety and cost her everything else. When the Skarn fleet finally came for Andras Reach, nobody much blamed her advisors for running. They had warned her. She had not listened. Now the warning was 40 minutes out and closing, a low hum under the static that meant the unweaving wave was already working through the outer districts, turning stone and steel and anything caught beneath them into drifting embers that climbed and went dark, like a fire with the brightness running backwards. Command's voice in my ear was calm about it. Core is non-priority. Column moves in 5. I read it back, acknowledged, and then walked the wrong direction, down through the colonnade that used to be her audience hall. I knew the shape of the story by then, the way you know things in a column, second-hand, in fragments, passed between stretchers. Her own honor guard had broken formation an hour earlier, running for the transports the moment the perimeter started failing. She had gone back in after them anyway, not to call them cowards, but because one of the youngest, a boy barely old enough to carry a rifle, had frozen in the colonnade and could not make his legs move. She had pulled him clear herself. A falling support beam had taken her leg for the trouble, and by the time anyone thought to mention it, the boy was already on a transport heading up, safe, and she was still down there, and nobody, not her own people, not mine, had gone back for her. That was the part that decided it, not the politics. Not the marriage she had refused, or the years of being told she had chosen pride over her people's safety. Just the plain fact that somebody had been left lying in the dark because the math said she was not worth the risk, and I had spent 12 years learning that the math is sometimes wrong about who is worth it. I found her where they said I would, half buried under fluted stone that used to hold up a ceiling, her gray-teal skin gone ash-pale at the edges, dark amber eyes open, and furious rather than afraid. Furious at the beam, I think. Furious, too, at being found. "You should be on the column," she said. Her voice came out steady, which told me more about her than the wound did. "Probably," I said, and got my hands under the stone. It was not a clean break. The slab had taken most of the weight off the bone but left the leg crushed below the knee, and I worked the way I work for anyone. No ceremony, no deference, no flinching from rank. I cut the boot away, packed the wound, talked her through every step before I did it, because that is the only kindness a field medic actually has to give. Not silence, not awe, just the plain truth of what is about to hurt, and why. She watched my hands instead of my face while I worked. I have noticed people do that when they are deciding whether to trust someone. "Your column left you behind to do this," she said. "My column does not know I am here." "Then why are you here?" I did not have a clever answer for her. "Because somebody radioed that you were not a priority, and I wanted to see for myself if that was true." She laughed once, short and disbelieving, and stopped herself fast because it pulled at her ribs. Above us, through the cracked stone, the hum was climbing, and pale motes of light had begun drifting down through the gaps, as if the building itself were starting to forget it had ever been a building. I splinted the leg faster than I would have liked, and got her arm braced over my shoulders. "You understand what I am," she said, as we started moving, meaning the politics, the refusals, 6 years of being the queen who would rather lose everything than barter herself for peace. "I know what you are right now," I said. "You are heavy, and we are behind schedule." She did not laugh that time, but something shifted in her face. Not gratitude exactly. More like she had braced herself, the way she must have braced every day since the marriage offer, for one more person to either kneel to the crown or write off the woman wearing it, and gotten neither. The wave caught the colonnade behind us, the moment we cleared it. I felt the heat that was not heat wash past, the stone columns dissolving into drifting light in total silence. Beautiful, the way house fires are beautiful from a safe distance, which we were not quite at. We made the evacuation line 40 seconds ahead of the column's own deadline, which is to say, we made it by nothing at all. What happened after is the part people tell now, though it was never the part that mattered to me. A handful of her remaining guard, the ones who had not run, or who had come back ashamed that they had, saw their queen carried in on a human medic's shoulder, legs splinted, unmistakably alive, and already giving orders about which of the wounded should be seen first. Word travels faster than any fleet. By the time the column surgeon had her stable, there were they lining the evacuation perimeter who had not shown her that kind of attention in years, not because I had done anything worth a song, but because she had, and someone had finally been willing to say so out loud by simply refusing to leave. I watched it happen from outside the surgical tent, which is the closest I came to feeling like a witness instead of a participant. An older Vey woman in a counselor's sash, one of the advisors who had argued loudest for the marriage, and loudest still when the queen refused it, came to the tent flap and stood there a long time before she finally went in. I do not know what was said. I only know that when she came back out, she was giving orders too, and the orders were about rebuilding the colonnade, not about who should replace the queen, who had supposedly failed her people by being too stubborn to survive on someone else's terms. She sent for me that night. I found her sitting upright against a stretcher frame, with her splinted leg propped on a ration crate, looking less like a monarch than like someone who had been very recently terrified and was working hard not to let it show. "They tell me triage called me non-priority," she said. "They did. And you went back anyway." "I did." She studied me a long moment, the fury gone out of her eyes now, her gaze bright and a little unsteady but nowhere close to breaking, and reached over, not for my hand, but for the medic's tag at my collar, the cheap stamped disc every field medic wears. She closed her fingers around it and did not let go. "Among my people, this is not a small thing to take hold of," she said. "I am taking hold of it anyway. I will not ask you to be anything you are not. I am only telling you, I do not intend to let you walk away from this, the way everyone else has been allowed to walk away from me." "I was not planning on it," I said, which was the truest thing I had said all day. I stayed. Not because a queen asked me to, and not because there was a crown waiting in it for a relief column medic. Because there was not, and never would be. I stayed because somewhere in the 6 years before I landed at Andras Reach, everyone around her had learned to either worship the throne or abandon the woman sitting in it. And it turned out nobody had ever tried the third thing, simply treating her as though she were worth the walk back through a collapsing building. People ask me sometimes, the ones who know the story, why a column medic with no stake in Vey politics would break a direct order for a queen who was not even his own. I tell them the truth, which is that I did not do it for the Vey, and I did not do it for the column, and I did not even fully do it for her, not at first. I did it because I have spent my whole working life believing that triage is a tool, not a verdict, that the word non-priority describes how fast we can move, never what someone is worth. She was the first person who ever looked at me afterward and understood that I meant it as more than a slogan. It turned out that was the one thing she had been waiting for the whole time, and neither of us knew it until the wave nearly took her, and I went back anyway, and knelt in the ash beside her, and called her by her name instead of her crown, and would not leave.